It takes about 3 to 4 months for dementia residents to settle in dementia units. But once they do, they make the dementia unit their world. Now, in this world, they have very few rights, except that is at the dining table. This is where they exert their rights, and often with full force. So if the potatoes are too cold, they'll call out potatoes are too cold, or the meat is too tough, or I need some more water, or I want a third helping of pudding. Why can't I have it? So there's an enormous amount of requests going on. And of course, one person starts and then everyone else joins in. So it can be very difficult for staff, because 3 staff for 30 residents, 3 courses, main meal, dessert, and then, not a course, but a cup of tea or coffee. And so if you've also got special requests coming in as well, over on top of that, and then of course there's the residents that have soft food that need help with eating, then others that don't feel like eating at all, so they'll get special sandwiches or hors d'oeuvres or crackers and cheese, some light food. And then there's others that are on ensure drink, or because they're just not eating at all and they only like the milkshake, creamy, protein-filled ensure drink. So everyone's got different tastes. Some people eat small portions, other people like big portions. Some people change day to day. One day they like this, the next day they don't like that. And yeah, so trying to keep everyone settled and happy, because the thing is, dementia residents do need to be fed and they do need to be hydrated, because if their weight falls on the charts and the doctor notices, then it goes back to the relatives, then that's not a good sign. So the carers have to make sure that their residents especially get fed. So along with serving the food, they have to help people eat the food, and if they're not eating, to entice them to eat. Now, why the dining area is just such a great place for dementia residents is because this is where they get to see all the goings on. At each meal, all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner, this is where all the staff congregate that are on duty at that time, and where they get to be in close proximity with all the staff, which they like. Otherwise, it's just their one personal carer in the room for half an hour or so in the morning when they have the showering and dressing done. But in the dining area, everyone's there to be able to help with the big task of getting the meal sorted. Now, dementia residents are very observant, because they're not caught up in things of the past, because they're not remembering it most of the time, especially recent things, present memory being dysfunctional. So they're not thinking about stuff of the past. Maybe they'll reminisce sometimes about their childhood, but we don't do that. That's not a full-time occupation. And they're not worried about the future, because everything's in hand for them, isn't it? They're getting fed, they've got a nice room, everything's warm, they're making friends. So really, the present moment is what it's all about for dementia residents. They're in the present, and they observe and they enjoy and they laugh and they can have a good time, as long as they're not caught up in distractions and disturbances. So in terms of observations, dementia residents, they will be the first ones to notice that someone's got an engagement ring on, or are they putting on weight, or are they pregnant, or etc. Personal points, they'll, microphone out to the whole entourage at the unit. They'll call it out to everyone, basically, if someone's pregnant, or they'll put on weight, or they're engaged. So there's no filtering process with information. I mean, the staff member may not want it to be publicly announced, but never mind, it has been now. So residents take great pride when they find out juicy pieces of gossip or information that they wouldn't have otherwise known. And the dining area is the place for this. Now, it's a big demand on some residents coming to the dining table every meal, really. If they're 40, 50 metres away, their room where they like to spend time, and they need to come down the corridor all that way for the meal on a walking frame, say, and especially if they've got Parkinson's symptoms, which is quite common in dementia units, either from Parkinson's, the condition of Parkinson's itself and the signs and symptoms of that, or side effects from medication. So the symptoms being the pill rolling tremor of the arms, and the gait is festinating gait, we call it, which is like a quickening step where they can stumble and easily fall with Parkinson's gait. It's an unfortunate condition. It's just so frustrating because they can walk along for the first few steps and then it starts to quicken up. So if that happens, if your relative has Parkinson's symptoms, ask them to stop when they can feel their gait quickening. Stop, take a few deep breaths, get themselves together, and then stride out. Encourage them to stride out. Big steps, big steps, big steps. And that will break the pattern of the quickening, festinating gait. So these brave residents with all their various conditions, isn't it? Shortness of breath, Parkinson's symptoms, painful hips, arthritis, osteoarthritis, on it goes. But you know, the dear things, they all come to the 3 meals, no matter what their physical condition. They don't get their meals in their rooms. They have to be independent and get to the dining lounge, you know, and then of course once they have their meal, either go to the lounge or back to their room. That's another trek. This happens 3 times a day, which actually keeps them quite fit compared to being in a little home where you only have to go 5 meters here and there, maybe 10 to get to the bathroom. 40 meters is a much bigger distance. But anyway, once they get to the dining room, they are rewarded because the meals are good generally in the places I've worked at, and hopefully in other places in the world. I hope the meals are good, or maybe as a relative you're bringing in nice, tasty rice dishes or other noodles or something to sort of boost up the menu a little bit. So good meals. If a dementia resident can have good meals and they're sitting at the table with their friends and maybe you as a relative there as well, they can have that camaraderie and friendship, and it's a good time of day. It's social, it's dining. You know, like the old days, wining and dining, you might do that twice a week. But here at the dementia unit, you're doing it 3 times a day, being served by staff and a very big range of food. So residents really enjoy it because you can, you know, even breakfast, am I going to have prunes or peaches or wheat bix or muesli or hot porridge or, you know, tea or coffee, or using cognition, making decisions. So even though some of the menus for the main courses are filled out in advance, still you've got a bit of liberty, especially with desserts, especially with ice cream, that being the favourite. Everyone in New Zealand, all elderly people, like ice cream. It's amazing. Thick, syrupy peach sponge, you know, or apple crumble, that's the favourite. Oh yes, apple crumble, full of sugar, full of everything, cream and ice cream. They like both. I don't know how that generation kept so slim. It was because they were so active and busy, riding bicycles to work, working all day long, bicycle back, big gardens, working on the farm. They were very athletic in their day and sporty. And so they're used to having big, thick, creamy, syrupy desserts, which are okay when you're working hard. But when you're in a dementia unit, you can put on the weight quite quickly, unless you're careful. So that's something to watch. The rich desserts and getting second helpings you might have got away with in the old days, but not really when you're sitting down all day. So you do need to watch the weight a little and go onto a lighter diet if needed. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit, both on Amazon. Thank you for your likes and your viewing, and please subscribe.